So, kind of recapping that Devyn created this amazing brand, Postpirations, and it just started by writing inspirational quotes on Post-its, and she was able to grow a pretty good following on social from that. And she had played around with some merch for some time, and now, she's brought her two favorite people clearly together.
Your dad will have a baby if he watches this and he hears two favorite people and he's not his name. Mr. Russo, you're one of the people. As with Karlie, I don't want to be thrown under the bus. You're a special person. Okay?
Oh, he knows our relationship. He knows
nothing, and he will remember.
There's a guilt trip coming for you, Karlie.
That's true. We'll talk it out. Don't worry. You ain't gotta worry about that. But so now we are hoping that we can bring some of the conversations that we've had privately with each other publicly to you guys and kind of see how it relates, and hopefully we can get that, that out, and then hear other people's opinion and perspective and kind of grow and open up our perspective, because I think the three of us, even just like, again, Nadine and I have not really, we haven't even known each other a month, I feel like, but in the conversations that we've had, like, we've, at least in my opinion, have opened up perspectives, and I'm just like, oh, so it's just nice hearing other people's, even if, like, okay, so one thing that Devyn, Nadine, and I have agreed on is no topic is off topic for this podcast, and we're never going to hang up on each other. So we might be hearing some things we don't want to hear, but we're going to listen, and we can agree to disagree respectfully, Devyn, Nadine, they may say something that I don't personally agree with, and that's fine, but we're going to discuss it, and we're going to talk it out, and we're going to have different opinions, and there's going to be some listeners who maybe they agree with me or Nadine or Devyn, but you'll hear other perspectives that, maybe I didn't see it that way. So I think that's like what I'm most excited about is, I'm kind of curious and interested to see what our first hard conversation is going to be via podcast, and how we handle it, because I know Devyn and I have had conversations that relate around one environment.
And we're bringing that up already, huh?
The state of Florida, penis? Is that what the conversation? Penis?
And we'll dig into that at a later date, but we've had the conversation, and the most recent conversation that we had with Nadine included, I felt was very eye-opening, and it makes you realize, just the biggest thing is to communicate. Like, yes, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, but if you're not communicating how you really feel, you're only hurting yourself as well. So,
you listened.
And also, if you get your feelings hurt, to be able to be brave enough to express that. Like, it's still hard to say. Like, even you two are, the closest women to me. And it was still hard, that last conversation we had, to even say, like, well, this is, how I feel. Like, because I do care about what you guys think. And so, but like you said, it created a lot of growth. And the whole thing was communicating. Like, we're open-minded people. Just because we sound passionate and very opinionated at times.
Bold and intense. I always say I'm very bold.
There's no other way to be.
Yeah. Tony Robbins told me to live life passionately, so I'm not going back. I will improve how I deliver my message.
Live life passionately by a man that's like 12 feet. So, like, of course he can do whatever he wants to do. He's a giant. No one's going to tell him otherwise.
Well, he said it, so I'm going to have 12 feet tall energy and live my life that way.
And now you need a man that's 12 feet tall to match it.
I can be 5'4", have 12 feet tall energy, and I could meet a man that's 5'7", and he got 13 feet tall energy.
They usually have small men syndrome, just so you know.
All right, see, we're getting close-minded here. No.
Narrow.
But I like the title of this podcast, it's Hard Being Human. These talks are not always fun. They're not always easy. But at the end of the day, I think when we have them, as anxiety inducing as they can be, they just help you grow closer to that person that you're being vulnerable with. Like Brene Brown, like vulnerability is a strength, like everyone is so scared to be vulnerable because they think it's a weakness, but being vulnerable shows how strong you are because we're all feeling these things. But we don't want to let anyone know that we're feeling them, but we're all doing it. So why are we trying to like put that front up all the time?
And Karlie, I'd like to point out, like, and talk about your podcast a little bit, that you've done this, because I think the whole world is kind of going through is this aftermath of like COVID and figuring out normalizing. We talk so much about that, and I think this podcast will represent like what's this new normal we talked about for 2 years, and now we're going into like almost 3 years since we were locked in our houses, and so much trauma and just sadness happened. And now how do we walk forward with our mental health as women, as human, with being a team and a tribe together, because you need a tribe to survive this thing called life.
And I think that like for my last podcast was really focused on mental health, but I think that from the pandemic and everything, everyone's quote unquote norm has changed, and we need to like adjust and transition. And even being post 2.5-3 years, we're still figuring it out. And like I think when COVID hit, when I say we, like a society, realized how important mental health was and how important these connections are, because all of a sudden the only way you could see someone was video call. And it was like you really were relying on that, because if not, you felt so isolated and alone, because some people were. And so I think like we really found how important mental health is. And so now I think it's so important to have these talks, because it like I don't like using the word normal, because like your normal is not my normal, but like what my normal is like, and me and my friends, we do talk about mental health a lot and like our feelings and emotions. And I know not many people are comfortable doing that. And so I hope that this is a platform, in a fun way, because we're not always going to be like serious and things like that, but that we can talk about our vulnerabilities and make quote unquote light of it, just to show you that it is something that can be talked about, and it doesn't need to be a very serious conversation.
Yeah. That even if you have hard conversations, you need to laugh. And I think Nadine sent me a video the other day about this woman, and she just said, don't take yourself too seriously. But when you're dealing and walking in this world that is really hard, and every day you're being challenged with different things, and post COVID, and just kind of reflecting on each individual life too, everything you've gone through, Nadine has gone through, I've gone through, we're all walking anxieties of what we've been through, and how do we coexist with each other. So
yeah, and how do we work on those? Me and you, Devyn, we've talked about a lot. Is this my trauma speaking, or is this just how I've grown? And I know I said you a meme, Devyn, that was like, when you're doing good in life and like you're in a therapy session and your therapist says like, okay, so what are you gonna say or something? And it's like, what goes up must come down. It's like, like damn, like no, that's not what we say. But I'm excited to see where this goes. So yeah.
Are we waiting on me? Yes.
No. Anyone? Any final words? Anyone?
I'm excited as well. I'm excited as well, because as Devyn will tell you, I'm going with the one that will be the devil's advocate when it comes to certain things. And she did mention trauma just now, and I'm like, in my mind, it's firing off, because oftentimes I feel like people hold traumas and they use them as crutches. And they'll walk through every situation, like, oh my God, this is just so traumatic for me. I can't go on, or I'm suffering from this trauma. And they use that as their pretty much shield to never move forward. Like, I was traumatized with this. So I'm looking forward to going into that, because it's like, I'll never date again because like this guy hurt my feelings. And be like, no, you'll never date again because you don't know how to forgive and move forward. That's your like fear, that 4-letter word. Like, that person didn't traumatize you enough for you to become paralyzed. That's a choice. You choose to be stuck in that state, because they've already moved on to 7 other girls. You're the one that's sitting there like...
But that could be their trauma too. Their trauma is they're not dealing with their trauma and they're just popping around. There's a balance. There's definitely a balance, because...
Yeah, but everyone copes differently. Men cope 1,000% differently than women. But oftentimes, I know me personally as a woman, like sometimes we'll just hold our ground for an extended period of time. We'll stay in our cocoon and overthink and overanalyze absolutely everything. Whereas a man on 30 days, he's just like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? Not necessarily meaning that the next person is going to be his wife forever, but they're, in my opinion, sometimes men, when it comes to dating after a very long relationship, they just hop right in the van. Like, because in their mind, they're just like, if I stay down for too long, like I might get too used to the single life. And they just keep kissing frogs, or I guess you wouldn't kiss a frog when it comes to a girl. Kiss diamonds.
There's some frog girls out there.
Yeah.
There's some froggy girls out there.
It's disgusting.
I'm not a frog, but there's some froggy girls out there.
Yes. We're not frogs.
I'm a butterfly.
Well, we're frogs to some men, because clearly the ones that didn't work for us, we were the
That's
frogs.
true. You're always the bad guy in somebody.
I was never a frog.
That's
okay?
No, everybody. You don't get to you don't get to pick if you were a frog. The other person.
Devyn, you can pick other animal, but frog. I don't like frogs.
You were a snake. You were
a rat.
You were a rat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dare you? How I feel about rats too.
You're cockroach.
Yeah, you were.
I'm hanging up. I'm hanging
No,
up.
we do not hang up. But on that note, I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to get to know both of you better. Devyn, you're my cousin, but I'm sure there's things I'm
Oh, we're gonna argue.
And I'm excited. And I'm excited to learn our audience and hopefully, get to meet some of them.
Well, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Well, I think it's so beautiful, and just to, shout out both of you, and before we conclude, but Nadine in the past couple of years has opened up so much, but I couldn't imagine just a couple of years ago even, her being as open and vulnerable as she's willing to be now. And so I think, our intention is to make sure that we can all mesh together, but at the same time, Nadine, you literally live this life. Like the work that both of you do, Karlie being a social worker and Nadine helping people get into homes. I mean, man, people have dragged her into their personal lives. And so even this past couple of years, what she's been able to do and grow through her line of work, and Karlie being a social worker, it's amazing like how your path can bring you now to this perfect moment of It's Hard Being Human podcast. Because these women are both walking examples of, they'll be on the phone and they might not want to be on the phone with you, or they might not want to necessarily be nice to an interaction with another human being, but you guys show up for those people and you always show up for others. And that's really why I admire you guys so much. I'm glad that I get to share you with the world, and that you guys have both been so open, because it's taken a whole lifetime for us to get to this moment and all of this to be aligned. So I'm looking forward to just the audience getting to know each of your journeys and how it brought us all here together. So,
and yours, all of our journeys.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm excited. They're everything.
I think we have to end on that note, because she just said such amazing things.
It was such a soft ending. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Is your heart feel good right now? Okay. Okay, good. I do want to say, because going back, what inspired this conversation is we wanted to have something that helped women create a tribe. I know it's hard being human, but I'm always gonna shout out to my lady friends, because I just think women should rule the world, even though penis rules the world. So we do love them. We want to love on men. We love you too. Mwah. Some of you, but women need to come together and support one another and be there for one another. And so that's what I hope this kind of, we've all been through situations where we've had some friends come and go, but I want to know what you both think on how do you keep, like, what made you think that with the distance and the time that we didn't talk and the hard conversations that we had with each other, if each of you could kind of share real quick, what do you think makes a friendship and connections work